Hey everyone, Board Game Brody here with Meeple Mountain. I have a copy of Godspeed by Pandasaurus Games. It's a space race game not to the moon, but to colonize on an exoplanet. The game is for 2 to 5 players and takes about an hour to an hour and a half to play. The game uses worker placement and bidding as its main mechanics, and players will represent one of the 5 countries in the game: the USA, Japan, Soviet Union, the European nations, or India. The game plays in 10 rounds following phases in the game. For example, you will have a negotiation phase where everyone will decide to respond to an event or not, and depending on the decision, players will either get a bonus or a penalty. Nations will then bid on cards to help them in the game, and then place their team members out on action spaces to perform actions, earning prestige. At the end of each phase, nations produce resources and team members return back home. After 10 rounds, the nation with the most victory points wins the game. Now let's go over 4 things that you should know about this game. Number 1, the flow of a round. So like I mentioned, the game is played over 10 rounds with 4 phases in each round, and the flow will go from left to right following on the board. First, a High Council card is revealed that presents a challenge to all the players for every nation. Players will decide to use their matching team member to fulfill their challenge, or they might decide not to. Any nation that does ignore that event, they will not be placing their team member on the challenge and will receive a penalty listed on the card. Now, if and only if all nations respond by placing their team members here, then everyone will gain a bonus that is shown on the card. Next phase is the supply depot. Nations will bid on cards placed out as well as the first player token. Bids are placed using at least 1 team member and as many credits or rovers as you would like, and players will place it in their hand and close their fists so no one can see them. Bids are then revealed all at the same time. Players add up their bids together by the influence listed on their team members, plus 1 for each added resource. And the player who bid the highest gets to choose which card that they would like first, before everyone else does, or they can choose to be the first player by taking the first player marker. Then, in descending order of bids, players will take 1 card or 1 thing left, and after the lowest bidder chooses, the highest bidder gets to take a second delivery from whatever's remaining. All team members played from all players will be used and placed in the supply depot area, and all resources used in any bid will be discarded. Phase 3 is the action phase, where nations will take turns sending their team members to take unique actions and complete developments. Spaces require specific type of team members to go there, and spaces will help you progress in the game, like you can search the discard pile of the supply depot and take one of the cards to keep. You can take 2 resources of your choice. You can build a production building. You can draw development cards. You can take 2 rovers and then take the top card of any development deck, while each other nation gains basic resources of their choice. Or you can take the action of taking any 1 development card, or lastly, drawing 3 development cards of the indicated type and choosing 1 to keep, or to complete a development card of that type from 1 in your hand. Yes, I know that's a lot of actions, but there's a lot of things you can do in this game. The last phase lets you move on the prestige tracks, produce resources from your buildings, take bonus actions from your cards, and it kind of resets the board, taking your team members to play for another round. Number 2, the worker placement. Each player starts the game with the same team members, but each has a different influence value related to them than all the other players. So the worker placement will change during the rounds as players decide to use a team member for the High Council or using 1 to bid for the supply depot, and then that leaves you 3 possibilities to use for actions on the right side of the board, each that can only claim certain spots there. So it takes planning and balancing to perform the worker placement optimally in the game. Number 3, asymmetric player startups and buildings. So I mentioned everyone starts with a different value of each of their team members, which in itself makes each nation have a strength and a weakness. So players should plan accordingly. In addition, each nation starts with a building which gives them a production bonus of some type each round. Players shouldn't feel like the game is the same every time because players should change what nation they play as to get a different feel of the game and changing strategy. Number 4, scoring, prestige tracks, milestones, and the goal cards. You've used your team members wisely, gaining bonuses and moving on the prestige tracks. The ending position of these tracks will determine part of your final score, and you will move up or down on these tracks by completing development cards. Some development cards state how many spaces you move on the track, while others state circumstances between you and other players to determine how many spaces you will move up. You can also gain more resources each time your prestige marker passes a starburst, giving you additional incentives to move up on these tracks. But the highest nation on each track at the end of the game will get 8 points. Second highest will get you 4 points, and the third highest gets 2 points. And if you have a prestige marker below the start, you will lose either 1 or 2 points depending on how low that marker is on that track. Milestones are some objectives that can be done to score 4 points at the end of the game. The first player to achieve the milestone is able to take the milestone statue to score at the end of the game. Players can also achieve goals stated on the lunar season scoring tiles, and to score each tile, you'll need to achieve the goal during the stated round. For each achieved, 3 points will be awarded for each. In addition, bonus points can be awarded for artifacts or some objective cards, and 1 point for each extra relic power tile, and 1 point for every 10 leftover resources. As you can see, you can gain points doing a lot of different things, but the focus tends to be mostly on the prestige tracks, the milestones, and the lunar season tiles. The player with the most points wins the game. Again, Godspeed brings a nice flow to the game each round by moving left to right on the board. The worker placement mechanic with the asymmetrical team members for each player adds the need to strategize and to plan. And when doing well, you will gain prestige and complete goals, winning you the game. These 4 things should help you understand what the game is about to see if you need to get it to your table. So put on your space helmets for your country, racing to colonize this new planet with your family and friends in Godspeed by Pandasaurus Games. Again, this is Boardgame Brody. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stick around and check out some other board game reviews to see what you might want to get to the table.